Welcome to Going Green TV. And this show is sponsored by the San Benito County Chamber of Commerce. We've got a great show lined up today. Our first guest is Chris Kahn from Joint Venture Monterrey Bay. He's a return visit. And our second segment, we'll have Herman Garcia from Chair Central talking about all the good work and volunteer work they're doing to clean the watershed in Gilroy. So, hey, let's get started. Hey, Chris, good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, David.
Hello,
Shawn.
And
Hello,
of course, I can't leave out Shawn Novack, my co-host, who we all know is our water expert with the Water Resources Association of San Benito County.
Thank you, David.
You know, Chris, you know, I'm glad to have you back. I'm sorry we didn't have enough time last time to talk about all the good things that you've been doing, your volunteer work with Joint Venture Monterrey Bay, and leaving off from last time, we talked about, you know, the innovation in Silicon Valley and the environmental sensitivity of Monterey Bay, and how you're working on kind of getting a collaboration to do some innovative, sustainable business strategy. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, first, thank you for having me back. Yeah, we could probably have several segments on. There's a lot of subject matter here to cover, but yeah, the region. The Monterey Bay Tri-County region of Monterey County, San Benito County, and Santa Cruz County, you know, it has an awful lot to offer and a lot of common issues to solve. And a lot of times, what happens is that each area is working on solving these problems independently, whereas if we can start to collaborate together on some of these issues that we have, these regional issues. We can share some of our solutions across county borders, sometimes even across city borders, and address these issues jointly. Yeah, there's a lot of economy of scale to be gained by working together. Just for example, in energy, there's a program right now for regional procurement collaboration for all of the jurisdictions that are interested in purchasing solar capacity. This is only for public entities right now, but they're putting together a joint buy so that they can get a very large discount on the equipment and services.
Now that's different than community choice aggregate?
Oh yeah, that's a very different issue.
Okay.
And if you'd like to talk about that, community choice aggregation
Yes.
is you know, that's something that's been being worked on for a number of years, but finally last year, the County of Santa Cruz, under Supervisor Bruce McPherson, he got behind this project and dedicated a staff member, Ginny Johnson, from Ecology Action to head it up. And so in the past year, we have gone around to all of the jurisdictions in the region, 18 cities and 3 counties, plus a number of other agencies who have all signed on. I mean, 100% of the jurisdictions signed on to doing a feasibility study for creating a regional community choice aggregation implementation. And that's something that most people don't yet understand or know about, but I'm here to tell you that it's a wonderful thing.
Could you define it a little bit for the
Yeah,
viewers?
let's
Talk about what
Yeah.
a CCA is.
This year we'll be doing a lot of outreach because everybody needs to understand it so that by the end of this year they can choose whether or not to join the CCA that's being formed. So what it is, basically, in our area, PG&E is the utility provider for electricity and gas. So what PG&E does to deliver electricity to us is they do 2 things. They purchase energy and then they distribute and deliver energy. And so what a CCA does is it takes the purchasing of energy and separates it from the utility and places it in the hands of a public agency. So in this case, all of the jurisdictions that choose to join the CCA would do a joint powers agreement and create this agency that would then purchase energy on the ratepayers in this area's behalf. What that does is, for one, it allows that agency to make more local choices. We can choose to purchase power that has a higher renewable content. We can choose to purchase power that's generated locally within our region, creating more economic opportunities for people in our region. And then the other major benefit is that currently the utility is allowed to make profits off of those purchases that then go off to their shareholders in other areas, whereas in this case, what otherwise would have been profit stays with this local agency and can be reinvested in the region in the form of incentives for more local generation and other energy efficiency kinds of projects.
And this has been done in Marin County, I understand. They've increased their renewable energy portfolio that way.
Yeah, the state legislation for this, I believe it was AB or SB 117. It was long ago. But the first implementation of this was in Marin County, and they broke ice on this and had a number of issues to overcome in doing so. But the second implementation was Sonoma County, and they really improved upon the model. And the rest of the state, there are efforts all up and down the state now to look at creating community choice aggregation. Ours would be the largest to date, and it would be the first tri-county regional implementation to date. So we have a number of areas of new ground to cover.
So we still use PG&E's power grid to distribute the power, but we just make the decision on where the power comes from?
Right. We would purchase it and then say, tell PG&E, please collect the power from here and send it to
Then
our
I imagine the
customers.
local agency would still be under their preview of the Public Utility Commission as well?
Yes, I believe so.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
This board, I believe the board that represents the ratepayers for the CCA, that's called the PDAC board, is that correct?
Well, right now, we don't have an agency, so we
Right.
don't really have a board. What we have is a project that is being explored. It's
But
an
once
exploratory
it gets
project.
developed, if the feasibility study is favorable and let's say some San Benito County is one of the consenting regional entities that prescribe to this, then a board will eventually be formed.
Yeah, right
that
now.
would decide where the purchasing, where the power would be coming from.
That's
Is that
right.
correct?
That's right.
Okay.
This entity, we're forming this entity right. I'm sorry. We're in the evaluation stages right now to determine the feasibility of studying of forming this, and where that stands is that we've gotten all the jurisdictions to sign on. We've received a grant from the state, I believe, to implement our feasibility study. And we've put a procurement out, and as we speak, I think there were 4 respondents, and one of them is being selected. Next week, there's a meeting to update that. This year, we'll be doing the feasibility study, and we'll be doing outreach to help educate people about this. And at the end of that, we'll be going around to find out how many jurisdictions want to join in.
Right.
But what we're hoping for are lower rates than PG&E, higher renewable content than PG&E, and taking those benefits and using them to incentivize local generation.
Now speaking of energy, and let's talk about some of the utility scale solar projects. I know you've been very adamant and doing some volunteerism on a couple of them. One of them is the Panache Valley Solar Project, right? Can you explain your involvement in that?
Sure. Well, first, in our region, there are 2 large-scale, utility-scale projects. One I'll briefly mention is California Flats in Monterey County. It would produce 280 megawatts of solar photovoltaic energy. And the other project is in San Benito County. It's the Panache Valley Solar Project, which is 247 megawatts of solar photovoltaic energy production. And that project I've been I've been working to promote that project and help help the community understand what it is and why we want it or need it. You know, I work on the Monterey Bay Regional Climate Action Compact and Monterey Bay Community Power. There are so many different reasons why right now we need to back these at least these two large-scale projects. There's a short window of opportunity right now where there are federal incentives that make large-scale projects like this feasible. That goes away at the end of next year. Projects have to be completed by the end of 2016 in order to receive
Federal money.
that incentive. So if we don't get these projects completed before the end of that time, then we lose that opportunity. The climate needs, you know, greenhouse gas reduction is something that we are way overdue on how much we need to do in that regard. And so getting some of these big projects done while there's a short window of opportunity.
Yeah. I
will
mean,
really help.
we're already seeing some of that. You know, it's one of the side effects of the drought is we depend on a lot of hydroelectricity from the Central Valley project, and because there's less water, there's less energy to deliver off that system. So it's affecting us now.
Yeah, and the less hydro that you can use, the more you're ending up using fossil fuel generation.
Yes. So
Now, speaking of water, I understand that you've also been involved with conservation through innovation and efficiency, the GWR Pure Water Monterey. Did you want to mention that?
Yeah, well, that's not
Yes.
something I'm so much involved with, but just to let you know the kinds of things going on in our region, the Monterey Regional Water Pollution Control Agency has been very innovative in taking what would otherwise be wastewater that would be dumped into the bay. And while they already treat the wastewater at least up to the level that it can be dumped into the bay, now they have, I believe it's a first in the country, approval to clean that water up to a higher level so that it can be used as irrigation on fresh produce ag fields. And you know, that's very important in the area where they're located around Marina and Castroville, because there's currently saltwater intrusion, seawater intrusion into the aquifers, and so the further pumping by agriculture to irrigate their fields exacerbates that. So now we can irrigate with this water, which reduces the pumping and also helps hold back the seawater intrusion. Pure Water Monterey, that's one more project that further cleans up the water to drinking water standards, and then uses that water to inject it down into the seaside basin sorry, aquifer, so that it can provide drinking water after it's had like a 6-month residency time. So, you know, as we're looking for sources of drinking water, one way to obtain that is by cleaning up our wastewater, taking all of the contaminants out of it, and then pumping it down into the ground where it's naturally filtered and cleaned to drinking water standards.
And that's the only difference basically between irrigation water and the drinking water is pumping it back into the earth and then letting the ground filter it out, pumping it back up.
Well, I believe in the treatment, there's additional treatment that occurs to the water that's going to be used for drinking water.
I don't know how they're going to separate that out, but that's interesting. Yeah, and
Well, let's switch gears now and
Okay.
talk about transportation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Transportation.
Yeah,
So,
and
yeah.
EV power stations and that type of those kind of components.
Yeah, so when you look at trying to regionalize and get greater collaboration within this region, one of the issues that you find is that you cannot get between Santa Cruz, Hollister, Monterey, and Salinas. You can't get between any of those without going on a 2-lane road that is backed up during traffic time. You know, mobility is
Highway 25 brings.
mobility is very, very hindered in this within this region, and so the communities all stay very separate. So we do need to improve mobility in a big way. And if you've ever driven on Highway 1 in Santa Cruz, but at rush hour time, it's
Oh,
yes.
it's
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah.
So personally, I'm not in favor of widening a lot of roads. Instead, I'm in favor of a regional rail transportation system. Right now, we already have right-of-ways and tracks that go from Gilroy to Hollister and over to Watsonville and up to Santa Cruz and down to Monterey. Some of those are active by used for freight or used by Amtrak. And then in Santa Cruz, they've reactivated their track for local use. But what we don't have is a regional system. And the other thing about a regional transportation system is that it should be of a new technology, the new kinds of technology that are available today, rather than the old 1900s technology
Yeah.
or the improvements on that. But rather than big, heavy, long trains that go from here to there, there are now technologies available for small, light, fast point-to-point systems that can go back and forth to wherever you need to go, rather than having to go all the way from one end to the other. The value in them being ultralight is that you can have them on elevated railways so that they are not producing the safety hazard or the noise hazard of all the honking that has to occur currently. And you can run them
And
by
then if
solar power.
you have the light rail, of course, next to high-density population centers, you're within the smart growth strategy.
Yeah. Everything is pointed towards transit-oriented development now. So developing along transit routes and providing public transportation that is economical and convenient has just so many advantages.
The lower collective carbon footprint. For
Yeah,
the
and as you know,
community.
in San Benito County, about half the residents commute every day out the Highway 25 corridor. And I was just at the supervisors meeting on Tuesday, and they were talking about widening Highway 25. State funding is non-existent apparently, and we're talking millions and millions of dollars to do that project. So it just seems to me the timing's right to initiate, because I drive down there and I see that railroad track right next to 25. I'm like, I would love to take a train from Hollister to Gilroy and then get on Caltrains, go to the city or wherever up north.
Well, further reason is that the California High-Speed Rail project is scheduled to stop in Gilroy. And right now, the Monterey Bay, we haven't talked about sustainable tourism,
Well,
but
that was the
but
next
the Monterey
topic.
Bay region, the Tri-County region is really primed to be one of the top destinations in the world for sustainable tourism. And right now, all of our, we have, in Monterey County alone, there's a $2.5 billion tourism revenue. And the tourists that we have, while most of them are within the 2-hour drive market, we have tourists from all over the world, but they come through either San Francisco or LA, and then they find it difficult to get here. So, if we have the high-speed rail going between San Francisco and LA and stopping in Gilroy, it's a perfect opportunity for us to have them get off of that train and onto our regional system, and then we shuttle them around to Hollister, or San Benito County, Santa Cruz County, and throughout Monterey County, and have them leave their cars elsewhere, or even the Bay Area travelers. They can get on the train and come down, or they can go park in Gilroy, get on our system, and go around the region with it, so that we can increase our tourism dollars without increasing the load on our transportation system.
Yeah. Well, hopefully
I
that'll
like that
come
idea.
about sometime in the near future. With now we got the national parks, and our focus now with the Chamber of Commerce is on tourism. So we have a lot to offer, but it's a matter of getting them here and then shuttling them around, as you say, and so they can enjoy all the wonderful amenities and the features of San Benito County.
Yeah, projects like
chamber.
that, they're a very heavy lift. And so independently, the way that we do our transportation in each county right now, it's probably difficult to get much of it done. But if we start regionalizing and working together on a regional rail system, it's a doable thing.
Okay. Hey, well, we have maybe just a minute or so left. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you want to cover?
Can you
or-
talk about the branding of Monterey
Oh,
Bay
the
real
brand.
quick?
Okay,
Oh,
yeah,
thank
so
you,
another
Shawn.
entity that I'm involved with, I was one of the co-founders of Brand Monterey Bay, along with the Monterey Bay International Trade Association and Stearns & Moore Capital. So Brand Monterey Bay, it's a business league to promote investment, trade, and tourism in the Monterey Bay region. So there's two things that we try to do. One, we try to, which I'm doing every day, is trying to get people within this region to think of themselves as part of the Monterey Bay region, not just think of themselves as I'm from Santa Cruz or from San Benito County or from Monterey. But we're all from the Monterey Bay region, and the more that we start advertising that fact and working together, the more we become a destination known as the Monterey Bay region, as Monterey Bay. And that way it helps to stifle competition between our markets. You know, Monterey and Santa Cruz, you rarely will see advertisements that have both the aquarium and the boardwalk in them. But what a great package this whole region offers, especially when you start looking at wine. I mean, we have at least 4 great wine areas within our region, and right now they're each marketed independently. But when you put that together, we're one of the greatest wine regions in the world.
Well, you know, now they mentioned wine, I think that's a good topic to end on, okay? But I want to thank you for coming back on the show
Yeah, thanks,
and
Chris.
joining us today.
Okay,
Chris.
anytime, and there's a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, I'm sure
Tons
there
of
are, but
stuff.
we covered a lot of good topics. And one other thing for the viewers, if you want to find out more about Joint Venture Monterey Bay, the website you would like to share?
Yeah, we're at jvmb.org.
Okay,
Venture Monterey Bay.
great. Good to see you, Chris.
All right, thank you
good.
for
Take
Thank
having
care.
you, Chris.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
You're welcome. My esteemed pleasure to have a return visit from Herman Garcia from Cheer Central. And for those who aren't familiar with Cheer, it stands for Coastal Habitat Education and Environmental Restoration, right?
Thank you.
And Herman is also known, AKA, as the California Kid, because he used to be a professional card player, but got into forming, he's the president of Cheer, which is an association of volunteers. And what they do is, they're one of the prime focus is they go into the Pajaro watershed and clean it up. And here's an example. I said, Herman, if you're going to come back on our show, please bring our friend. I don't know if he
Ambrose.
Ambrose. Bring Ambrose back. And that actually is a replica of a fish caught in Gilroy. Is that correct?
Rescued.
Rescued in Gilroy.
Yes.
Yeah. And
From
Herman-
the 60s, if I remember right?
No, 2007
Get
we
out of
rescued this. Yeah.
and it was a while back where you guys used to do a lot of fishing in Gilroy, right?
Yes.
And then there'd be fish on. You used to, put your cards down and go out and do some fishing. But
Yes.
but then at one point there weren't any fish. They were all
They
kind
disappeared.
of isolated and disconnected. And so you did a lot of rescue for the fish, the salmon that were in the watershed, right?
Yeah.
And you want to give us a little
Sure.
update on your
We
experience in that?
discovered that back in about 1990, the populations were gone, and we lost the fish in like a couple of years, right? And we didn't know why. All we knew was we didn't have any fish left. We hired a couple marine biologists to come down and do an assessment of the watershed and electrofish, inventory the water, several creeks, and they were only able to find one smolt-sized steelhead. So we knew they were gone. We didn't know why. And in 2003, we formalized Cheer into a 501c3 nonprofit with a focus on steelhead to try to get our run back. Because way back when I grew up here, we had huge steelhead runs and Chinook salmon. Right here in Gilroy and Uvis Creek.
Amazing.
I mean, you could walk over the backs of the fish to get from one side of the creek over there at Christmas Hill Park at Silva's
Can't believe
Crossing,
that.
just full of fish. And that's what we enjoyed growing up here. Fishing, hunting, camping, Christmas Hill Park was a wilderness. You know, we spent our time in the creek. We enjoyed the best of it, but my generation, the baby boomers, also messed it all up. So in taking responsibility for, you know, what we destroyed, Cheers' mantra is we gotta leave it like we found it. So this is what we're doing with Cheer.
Right. And we reconnected, I think it was February 26th at the Recology Center. I think that because we've been in a drought, you've taken advantage of getting a lot of this junk and debris out of the watershed and actually formed a junk museum of sorts. Is that
Yes.
correct to say that?
You know, everybody's, because Cheer is mostly made up of conservationists, fishermen, and so with the drought conditions last year, everybody was crying about the drought, no fish, no water, right? And instead of crying about it, we decided to turn it into a positive, because the dried creeks and rivers were now exposing garbage that we normally couldn't have access to or get to. So we started cleaning it all up. Because of drought conditions, we found 5 sunken boats in the upper Pajaro up here in San Benito, Santa Clara County. 1 ski boat, 1 big outboard, a sailboat, and 2 rowboats we took out. We took out 2 cars, 2 pickups, and over 1,000 tires that volunteers pick and shoveled out of the stream beds. 1,030 to
amazing.
be exact.
1,000.
They removed 567 cubic yards of garbage, took out 3 fish traps that were active in the water at the time, and 5 gill netting operations that were poaching fish. And so, you know, I mean, it's really bad, but we have managed to reclaim the watershed, and now we're, over the last 2 years, and now we're actually implementing some of our habitat restoration projects that are real exciting.
So you took advantage of an unfortunate situation, the drought, and turned it into a positive experience because of all the good things you were able to accomplish.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Right.
Are you eventually going to restock some of these creeks at all, or
Well, we don't stock them. These
No.
are wild fish.
all wild? Okay.
Yeah, these are native wild fish. Huge difference. In 2006, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration called me, and we met with them at the Federal Building in Santa Rosa, and they called us because they wanted to partner with Cheer, because we had such a long history in this watershed dealing with steelhead issues. And so in 2006, they partnered with us, they trained us and equipped us to do steelhead rescue and restoration. And the way they explained it, because we were thinking our strategy to get our fish back was to actually build a fish hatchery here. Okay? And so what they said was, hey, we don't mind talking to you about a fish hatchery, but before we go that route, we would like you to try fisheries restoration. And they explained to us what that meant and looked like. And we said, okay, we'll give that a try, because doing it that way, we have a shot at getting our wild fish back. Okay? With a hatchery, all we're doing is breeding corn-fed couch potato fish, and every year we're just dumping fish on fish, but the habitat and the ecosystem isn't sustainable for them. So you have to reclaim the habitat.
How long did that process, that education process, take, where you learned how to do that restoration of the fish with that
With
department?
NOAA,
Yeah.
that's a real interesting story and a great question. that first year in 2006 when we started the rescue and restoration. They trained us in a couple months, and they provided the equipment and everything. But when we started rescuing the first year, we rescued 120 fish. Now, NOAA research in 1997 demonstrated that there were only 500 fish left in 1,300 square miles of watershed. Santa Cruz, Monterey, San Benito, and South Santa Clara County. So basically they were gone, and they listed them for protection under the Federal Endangered Species Act. Well, in '06, we rescued 120 fish, right? A quarter of their population, according to their research. So they were real happy with our effort. And but that fall and winter, we started doing what we called habitat reclamation. And that's an evidence-based approach into dealing with the problems in the watershed. For example, while we're rescuing fish, we're witnessing all the damage in the watershed. Tires, hot water heaters, rusted lawnmowers, silt, sediment, garbage, right? So when
Kitchen sink, too?
yeah,
Throw it in.
it's in the museum. The kitchen sink's in the museum. But so when we ended the rescue season, November, that fall and winter, we started cleaning all that stuff up. Okay. And so the rescue season of '07, our numbers went up to 1,482,
Holy moly.
up from 120. And the
Unbelievable.
response from the state was, "What'd you guys do? Where'd all those fish come from?" Well, obviously, that best practice that we developed, right, in habitat reclamation had a positive impact. So we continued doing that in the fall and winter of '07. In '08, if you remember, all the steelhead and salmon populations in the Pacific Northwest tanked, went through the floor. It was big news in
I
the
remember.
print and television media. Salmon season closures, commercial salmon seasons closed, right? Well, that year, we, Cheer, volunteers, rescued 23,512 fish here in our watershed.
That's amazing.
So NOAA sent down a federal film crew to document what we do and how we do it.
Now, maybe you could just describe how you would rescue a fish.
Well, we use custom-made equipment. It's made back east, and it's made according to NOAA specs. And so, you know, we have long-handled nets. We have what
Put
we
them
call...
in a tank then?
Yeah, we have seine nets, okay? And our volunteers are trained on using the different methods. But once we pull the fish out of stranded pools, right, where the fish are in imminent danger of death, we put them in aerated tanks in our rescue truck, and then we transport them. And where we take them is determined by size. So young of the year, the babies, and they may be, you know, from an inch to 3.5 inches, we take into the upper watershed, into tributaries or sub-basins that are going to have water for the rest of the year, so that those fish can grow, and the following winter, they flush out back into the ocean. Okay? Juvenile fish that we rescue, we take closer to the bay, Monterey Bay, where they can return on their own to the ocean. And adults, we do the same thing.
How much water do they need to swim in? Because, I mean, some of these creeks look like they're like 3 feet deep.
We rescue some fish that we call floppers. And we have some video of floppers because we follow the dryback up the creek, okay? And we're rescuing fish out of all these disconnected holes. And disconnect means No water going in, no water going out. Okay? And under terms of our federal permit and state permit, we can only rescue fish in imminent danger of death in disconnected pools. So as we follow the dry back up, many times, the pool that we wanted to target for that day has already gone dry, and the fish are flopping in the mud.
Wow.
And we pull them right out of there as floppers, and we do cheer. What do you call it?
Mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
Yeah,
Kind of cheer them up, right?
yes.
I'm looking at that face. I don't think I would be putting my mouth on it.
And very rare that we lose a fish with our CPR.
I see,
CPR is
yeah.
what I was looking for.
I see.
Very rare.
I got to ask you though. There's been a raging battle about the Delta in that area, and working with a lot of the farmers and stuff. For the last 10 years, they've been limiting pumping up there for the farms and stuff to keep water in the Delta for the habitat. And that gets a bad rap. I think it's like environmental wackos or something. And especially during this drought, we're hearing a big cry from a lot of the Central Valley farmers to release more of that water, more pumping, because the farms are suffering, people are suffering. But yet, we need to keep a healthy habitat, because in the long term, that'll do us more. Am I looking at that right? I mean, kind of help me with that equation.
Well, I've since we partnered with Cheer partnered with the state and the federal government, we've learned a lot. Okay, not only about fisheries, but our watersheds and the habitat, and responsible management of water, right? Conservation. We have to do it all, okay? We have to do it all. And we also learn that, other species can coexist with mankind, and even development. Here in the 21st century, we don't have to be killing off species for the sake of a farming or housing development or anything like that. We can coexist. Let me give you some examples real quick. Here, since Cheers started our work, we have been very, very successful in reclaiming the watersheds. Water quality is way up. This is a good example. We have wild steelhead, okay? And we now have huge populations of lamprey eel in the creeks, which need very good water quality to exist. Okay, so our water quality is up, but what has happened foremost is other species that were listed as endangered or threatened are now bouncing back. Okay, red-legged frogs. We have American bald eagles nesting on Uvis Creek, eating our steelhead, which is okay. Tiger salamanders, just a ton of stuff, okay, of other species that are coming back. There's one that we never talked about. We discovered in '08, right here, 2 or 3 miles outside of town, right here in the hills behind Gavilan College. We have had a family of black bear living here in Gilroy.
I think there would be a synergy with the black bear and the fish.
Yes,
Right,
absolutely. And we never said anything because we don't want people out of
A
curiosity.
symbiotic relationship.
Yeah,
there.
pushing them out. But now their range has increased and they're moving up and down. So a lot of people are reporting, hey, I seen the bear, I seen the bear. So
You know,
I
I
was
think
gonna
we're running around out of time.
Yeah. But I was just going to say, we always say on this show, everything's interconnected. And when you do something over here, it's going to affect something over there. So we have to look at the big picture.
well, did you want me to finish real quick the Central Valley question?
Sure. if you
Yeah,
can- if you
you
can give me
wrap
like-
it up.
Yeah, real quick.
Real quick.
When I was playing poker and out on the road, especially in the Central Valley, my last 6 years were in the Central Valley, I witnessed nothing but abuse with our water by the farming community. Flood irrigating, flooding the farmer, the neighbor's property. sprinkling during the day, 100 degrees, 30-mile-an-hour winds. It's evaporating, it's blowing all over, and changes have to be made, not only by the general population in California conserving water, but also by the farmers themselves. They use 80% of it, and they abuse most of it. So I have issues with the farming.
What
community.
years were those when you were over there? I'm just kind of curious.
Well, I go over there all the time, speaking to other nonprofits over there. So I still see the same problem.
Well, Herman, you've affected change for the better, and I really appreciate it.
Very
You
much.
and the volunteers for Cheer, and it's my pleasure to have you back on today and joining us again. And hey, we want you to keep track of what you guys do and keep up your good work with Cheer.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Herman,
Thank you.
thank you for coming on.
Thank you.